All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Most Valuable Podcast. I am Mark Williams here with my colleague,
Victor Castro.
and we are just two dudes who do real estate for a living. And today, we're going to give you, the buyer, the truth about down payment assistance. Yes, that is correct. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But sometimes it can benefit you. So why don't we jump right in, Victor? And I know you were talking about this to some clients the other night, and this is why this topic came about. So why don't you elaborate a little bit and get us started here?
All right. Everyone wants a deal. I get it. You know, whether it's a cheaper price, getting it at the best price possible, whatever the case may be, you always want the best deal, including when you're buying a home. So, a lot of people look into down payment assistance thinking it's the best thing in the world. You don't have to come out of pocket much money.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes no money, right? Oh, my cousin actually bought a home with no money down. My friend bought a home with very little, out of pocket, maybe $1,000 out of pocket. So you hear all these stories all over social media, and you're like, well, I want to be that person, right? Let me look into that. And so they reach out, they ask about down payment assistance programs, and you have different professionals in the industry swaying you to use these programs.
Well, they're selling free.
They're selling free.
They're selling free. And it gets people's attention.
Yeah.
Right? Anything that is free, just think about, and we see why they do it, right? And, we're not saying it's a bad thing if you have reached out to somebody, maybe in your home buying process, or you've been thinking about it to find out about these free programs, right? But if the only value or the hook is for free, there's always a catch to something, right? Don't
Always.
you agree? Like nothing, there's that saying, nothing in life is free. Really isn't.
Mm-mm.
And it's the same when it comes to, getting a loan, getting a mortgage. So, think about it. So what's kind of I guess what we should talk about, Victor, now is like, you're talking about, people are hearing about these down payment assistance. What can they expect? Let's just say someone's like, I really need assistance in getting a home. They don't have the money to purchase it. And in those cases, sometimes those down payment assistance can assist you in the home buying process. So, but how do you qualify for that? Like, what's the steps to qualifying? Is it pretty easy to do?
No, all the contrary to that, Mark. It's actually more difficult, more added hurdles that you have to go through to qualify for these programs. And, it just starts, for example, with your credit score. If it is more risky for a financial institution to lend you money, then they're going to have added requirements for you to get that added, help that you may need. And look, if you need down payment assistance program, by all means, use it if that's the only way you're going to be able to get into your home.
Yeah.
Owning a home is better than not owning at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Owning a home is better than renting. So if you're going to buy with down payment assistance and that's the only way you can get in, by all means, do it.
So before we get a little bit further, like, what is down payment assistance? Like, what? I know we're saying that word, but what does it actually look like?
And that's a good question, Mark, because a lot of people assume it has to do with first-time home buyers. And when reality is, it doesn't matter if you're buying your second home, your third home. You can take advantage of down payment assistance programs regardless. So it doesn't just have to do with first-time home buyer programs.
Well, there are some that are.
Yeah, there's some that are specifically for that first-time home buyer.
First-time buyer, yeah.
But the reality is that first-time buyer that is looking to buy is assuming that they get to get a deal automatically.
Yeah.
They automatically assume, oh, well, there should be money that I should get granted to me because I'm a first-time homebuyer, and it doesn't work that way.
Where do these assistance programs generally come from?
So
Like, who provides them?
so there's different ones. There's grants,
Okay.
right?
So what's a grant?
So a grant is something that is going to be awarded to you if you meet a certain criteria. Example, some nurses. There's, if you're in the medical field,
Share it. Yeah.
there's certain medical individual or
Well, their company, right?
yes,
I know Stanford does one, right?
Kaiser also.
Kaiser as well?
So Kaiser has a program too that will give you up to 10% for your down payment.
That they don't have to pay
They
back.
don't have to
So
pay back.
that's the difference of a grant.
That is a
grant
grant.
is money that is just granted to you,
Yes,
and you do not have to pay it back.
correct.
There may be a set time frame of like how long you have to live in the house, so you do not have to pay it back, right? There are sometimes stipulations to things, or if it's the employer giving you the money, you may have to be employed for X amount of years after the money's given to you. You can't just get hired at Kaiser, get the money, and then quit the next day. I'm sure there's some fine print,
Yes.
and it'll be different for every grant. But there are some grants out there too. Like there was one in East Contra Costa County that was giving like $5,000 to first-time home buyers.
Mhm.
And all you had to do to qualify was be in contract and be a first-time home buyer and fill out a form.
Mhm.
And if you qualified, you met like the income requirement, then the grant would just send $5,000 to the title company. So you would pay $5,000 less, never had to pay it back.
And there's certain things, like you said, fine print that you have to go
Yeah,
through,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
For example, you have to be the first owner of your family.
Well, let's talk about that one.
Like, there's all
'Cause
kinds of
if
things.
you're listening to this podcast and you're like, okay, what is they talking about down payment assistance? Odds are you looked up or Googled down payment assistance. If you haven't been living under a rock for the last 3 to 4 years, and you're in California, you probably heard of a program called Dream for All. Now, Dream for All was probably it was the down payment assistance that's going to revolutionize the experience of first-time home buyers.
And the money's coming from the state.
And the money's coming from the state, right? And they did it in 2 rounds. In the first rounds, there wasn't really that much restrictions, right? Was there I don't even know if there was a restriction to be a first-time buyer.
Yes,
There was.
So
It was just you couldn't have owned a home in the last 3 years.
they changed it
Yeah,
up.
But
Yes.
I'm talking about the first
Yeah.
round. So the first round was really the only restriction was you were not a homeowner within the last 3 years. Doesn't mean you didn't buy a home in the past. You could have bought a home in the past, but as long as you didn't have a mortgage or you weren't on title of a home for 3 years or longer, you qualified.
Correct.
And that was the only qualification. And the credit score, right? I think it was a 660 credit score, right?
Yeah.
So everybody and their mama basically qualified for this. And what it was is you can get up to 20%, not to exceed a total amount of what was 150,000.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so it's capped. So the state was going to give you up to $150,000 to purchase the home. And you can use that 150 all for your down payment. You can use some of it to cover your closing costs. You can use some of it to buy down your rate. And essentially, they were giving you 20%. So, let's just say on an average house in Contra Costa County, which is, let's just say you could buy for $750,000 home, they were going to give you $150K. So you could essentially come out $0 to buy this home. And all you had to qualify for, you just had to qualify for the loan amount. You had to qualify for the loan amount. So it was like a normal qualification, but then the money to close was coming from the state. And everyone thought this was the best thing since sliced bread. I actually hate the program.
So do I.
And I'm going to tell you guys why I hate the program. Because it's a very misleading program. Yes. Does it put some people in a position to buy a home that maybe wouldn't be able to buy a home? 100% it does. So it does accomplish that goal. But what they fail to tell people is you're not just buying the home for yourself. You're buying the home with the state. The state owns 20% of your home.
So for context, 20% of no, well, you can go up to $1 million, I believe.
I
But anyways, the point here
Yeah.
is just to give you a number. If you're buying a you said 700.
750
So 20% of that is 150.
is 150.
So you can buy up to $750,000 home.
Yeah, you would
putting
buy
20% down.
750, right? You have to qualify essentially for the 600K. But let's just say your home's worth 750, right? When you buy it for 750, it appraised at 750. You don't own a $750,000 home. You own 80% of a $750,000 home for the life of your home
Which
ownership.
means $600,000
Exactly.
worth of it.
Exactly. And the state is entitled to 20% of the equity for the life of your ownership up to $400,000. Meaning, and I'll break it down, simple math, you bought the home today, $750. They gave you $150, okay? And let's just say you make minimum payments. And you had to own the home for like a certain amount of time too. So let's just say 5 years. I think it was like 3 years, but so you lived there for 5 years. Okay. Let's just say you lived there for 10 years. 10 years is a better number. You lived there for 10 years. And, let's just say we went through another recession. It kind of went down and up again. It's always going to go up, but let's just say it stayed flat for a little bit. Values went down a little bit. They went up. You didn't have this crazy rocket ship 20% year over year growth over those 10 years. You
Like
just
COVID.
like COVID. You just had a steady 1 to 2% growth. Okay. And it compounds. Excuse me. It compounds. So let's say in 10 years, the home you bought for $750 is now worth $1 million. Okay. And you've been paying your mortgage on time. And in 10 years, you went from owing $600,000, you now own $400,000 on the home. So you owe $400,000 on your loan balance, and the home's worth $1 million. If you didn't do down payment assistance, when you go to sell the home, you have $600,000 worth of equity.
Which is great. That
Which
would be
is great.
awesome.
Like, you can leverage that. You lived in your home for 10 years and you made $400,000
Many people would be able to retire.
out of country. Not in
Well,
California.
just to put, think about it.
But not
That's a
only
lot of money.
retire, but now you have that equity. Let's just say, to your point, you had kids. They were a little bit older. They're out the house. You're looking to down. People mainly sell their primary home that they lived in 10 years to like downsize, right? Kids are gone. They're in college. You're empty nesters is what they call it.
Yeah.
You don't need the 5-bedroom home anymore. So you and your wife or your husband, you're like, cool, let's sell the home. Let's take this money. Let's go retire in the retirement community. And we could take this $600,000 and go buy cash, a retirement home, and live off of a fixed income. Because when you retire, you have retirement, Social Security. You're not working. So you're living under like a fixed income. And now you basically got paid $40,000 a year to live in that home, right? Wrong. Because if you use this Dream for All program and you sell the home for $1 million, not only do you have to pay back
The money
the $150 that they gave you,
Yes.
they get 20%
On top of that.
of the equity of the purchase price. So you take $1 million and you minus $750, right? So now your equity is technically only $250. Okay? So your equity in that home was $250, and they take 20% of that. So they take actually, let me do the math a little bit better. So the $1 million you owe $4, you sell it for $6, you got $600,000. They're going to take their $150 from that $600, right? So now you have $450 left. Then they're going to take 20% of that $450. And I don't want to screw up this number, but let me bust out my calculator real quick. And we're going to say $450 times 20%. They're going to take an additional $90,000, which is going to leave you with, drum roll, $360,000. So instead of getting $600,000, you're only getting $360,000. And the state got all their money back, $150K,
Plus
and
more.
made $90,000 in interest off of you. So they made $9,000 in interest per year off of that money they lent you. It's not free.
It's not free money.
That's a big difference. 360 in your pocket compared to 600. That's almost double the amount. Now your retirement's looking a little bit less stress-free, right?
Yeah.
You can't buy that house cash. Maybe you're looking in a different state now, right?
Yep.
So
Forced to.
it was all fun and games, and yeah, we're able to afford this more expensive home, but you don't own the full home. You're a co-owner with the state.
The pros and cons have to be explained, and you have to understand them before you're able to make the decision.
I guarantee, Victor, that more than 50% of the people that got that program do not have a clear understanding of what they signed up for.
Yeah, I agree. In that call with my client explains it all, because they weren't told everything. They just were told, why are you going to use your own money? You could keep your hard-earned money in your bank account and use someone else's money, the bank's money, to get into a house. And you're only going to pay $1,000 to maybe $5,000 out of pocket to get into this house. And it's very misleading because they're not telling them the bad side or the other side of the coin.
Yeah, because in finance, there's something called, the phrase people use is cash is king, right? So even millionaires, when millionaires, you see them buying these $20 million homes in Beverly Hills, they're not taking $20 million of their money out the bank and cashing it out to buy the house. They're using something called like a portfolio line of credit. So essentially, it's like a credit line based on their investments with that bank. So what a lot of people don't know is, and you don't even have to have that much money. I think it's like most institutions, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just speaking for what I know, what I've been offered. If you have about $50,000 in an investment with the bank, they'll give you a line of credit off that investment up to 50% of the investment at like a low interest rate, right? So if you have 50,000, they'll give you a $25,000 line of credit to use like a line of credit to purchase anything you want and to make monthly payments, right, at an X interest rate, because it's what they call a sticky product, meaning you're not going to move your investment out because you have this line of credit on there. So you don't have to cash out your investments. You can use your investment to still leverage. Now, think about what I just said, and now you have millions in the bank. You know, you have $10 million in the bank. The bank will give you a line of credit for $5 million because they want to keep your $10 million in the bank because they're charging you fees that they're making money. That's the products banks sell are not mortgages. They sell money. Money is their product. So they have to figure out ways to make money on the money.
They got to find ways to keep you in debt, right?
They keep you in debt, right? So now your investment is tied up because you have this line of credit. Because if you cash out the investment and you have a balance on your line of credit, you're going to have to sell stocks, which you don't want to do because you can get capital gains tax on that, right? So you're kind of stuck using them as your investment. And if you have that much investments, they're making fees off you because they're managing your book, okay? And then they're also making interest off the money they're leveraging you. You know what I'm saying? So they're like double dipping on the money you're invested. But that's how these millionaires buy homes. They have hundreds of millions in investments, and they say, yeah, leverage, my collateral is my investment. And then they're financing the home because you want to keep your cash liquid. Last time I looked, I don't got 20 million in the bank. And most people using these down payment assistance do not as well.
Absolutely not.
So we're talking about average Joes like ourselves and you, right? And to your conversation that you had with that client, you know, they're being sold to use down payment assistance, making it sound like it's the best thing ever. And this is what people do. When in fact, 9 times out of 10, if you have the cash and you don't need to use an assistance program, it's always better to use your cash.
Always.
Because you're not buying a depreciating asset. You're buying an appreciating asset, meaning
it goes up in value.
It makes sense to use the bank's money when what you're buying loses value. But if what you're buying gains value, right? A secure, like proven commodity that if held for a long period of time, you will always more than likely be safe and make money. Just if you look at the history of mortgages, no one, if someone bought a mortgage in 1950, it's worth way more than what it was. Someone bought a home in 1950, it's worth way more than it was in 1950. And there's been crashes and recessions, but if they hold on to it, they're always going to make money, right? Cool. So why would you not use your own money to make guaranteed money? Like, why would you borrow money that has some implication of paying it back with interest? It's not beneficial.
Not at all.
It's not beneficial.
You're putting yourself in a hole.
Yeah. And then a lot of these programs have stipulations where you can't take advantage of the market shifting.
Correct. What does that mean, Mark? A little bit more.
Yeah. So, right now we're in a time where interest rates, they're not historically high, but over the last 10 years, they're like the highest they've been over the last 10 years. So if you were to buy a house today and you're locked into, say, 6.5% interest rate, and you use the down payment assistance program, and then next year rates drop down to 4%, there may be an instance where you cannot take advantage of the new interest rate because of the stipulations of the down payment assistance. I believe the Dream for All program, they only let you refinance once within.
Yeah, without having to
pay
the money
it back.
Yes.
So those people that bought and are at a higher interest rate, they have to kind of like be strategic on when they're going to do the refinance. And that can cost you thousands of dollars because you either got to wait out to the interest rate. You have no choice but to refinance and so you're paying more interest than the person that didn't use the program for a couple years. And then, or you refinance too early and now you're stuck.
You can't do it again.
You can't do it again without refinancing and paying this back. And odds are you didn't have the money to buy the house. So how are you going to have the money to pay it back? And if to gain 20% in equity, that takes a while because, yes, during COVID, those 2 years, properties increased like 40%. But I just saw a study the other day, and over the last year or two, the average home has only increased like 3%. Still good, but it's not 40, it's not doubling the price.
And this is nationwide.
But, yeah. No, even in the Bay Area. Really? It was like a low. Bay Area was like, I think it was like 5% in the Bay Area. They average all the cities and stuff. Correct. Yes, there's going to be some cities that always go up.
Yeah.
But the average in Bay Area was like 5%, which I always tell people on a bad year, it's usually 5%, which is a lot of money. 5% of $700,000, right, is $35,000. That's a lot of money. But it's not 20% or 40%.
Right. And you know what, Mark? Another good point to talk about is that owing more money just means you have it just means you have a higher monthly payment. So I know a lot of people that are currently in the hole and they don't know what to do. They're either going to short sell their home, they're going to go into foreclosure. And it's sad because they weren't given their options when they first bought the home. They didn't understand if they pay less out of pocket up front, finance less, that their payment is actually going to go up higher. So those people that had the opportunity to put more on their, more down up front are now having to suffer the consequences for taking that down payment assistance program because their payment is higher.
Yeah.
In some occasions, $500 up higher.
Yeah.
$400 up higher.
Yeah. I see a lot right now. You're probably seeing, if you're in the market to buy a home, you probably follow a couple agents. Hopefully you follow us as well on Instagram. And I see a lot of people, I know we did the Dream for All. So that it's CAL, like short for California, HFA. Housing, I don't even know what it stands for, bro. I've done like one loan in my career.
Housing Federation of Authority, something like that.
Housing Yeah.
Something like that.
Just goes to show how many times we use down
Yeah,
payment
we don't
assistance.
use it.
Right? And you know what? There's other ways, if you're short on the money, there's other ways to negotiate and leverage just being qualified, right? So, these down payment assistance on average. So the Dream for All was the kind of extreme, right? And they switched it up and it became harder to get round 2. But they're a dime a dozen. Like I'm sorry, they're hard to get. The second round was hard to get. It was like out of 1 million people in a county,
It was a lottery.
Yeah, it was like a lottery. Out of 1 million people in a county, maybe 100 people got it.
Mhm.
Right? Before it was just first come, first serve. It was crazy. But that same department, Cal Haffa, they do normal down payment assistance where they'll give you up to 5% in down payment assistance. In reality, talking to our lender, we usually see around 3%, right? So if the home is $600K, they give you like 18 grand. But they don't give you that money, bro. People think they get that money and it's free money. They just tack it on to like the loan balance. And then they also add to the closing costs.
Interest.
So basically what they're doing is they're financing the buy down of the rate. And what I see that pisses me off, because when you just give information without context, there's no value to that. And I see people posting the Cal Haffa rate. Like the nationwide mortgage rate would be like 6.75. And then the Cal Haffa rate's 6.125. So, the normal person that doesn't do lending for a living.
I want to use that.
Hey, why am I not using this Cal Haffa program?
What?
Right? And they'll go get approved and they'll call the agent that posted it and like, yeah, dude, I got you're 6.75 using Mark and Victor? Oh, I'm 6.125. And they gave me 3%. Did they really? Because what they're doing is they're essentially just financing what we call a buy down. So your rate is 6.75. Cal Haffa is just fronting the money to buy your rate down to the 6.125. And then they're adding some of that fee
to the closing
costs. And then the rest of the fee is being added to your loan balance. Meaning the portion that's being added to your loan balance is accruing interest daily. So that money's not free. That 18 grand over 30 years is going to cost you like $100,000 to $200,000. It's something crazy, bro. It's not, you got to think about it. Amortizing daily for 30 years at a 6.125 interest rate, 18 grand, I guarantee, like I'm not a mathematician, I might have threw an extreme number out there. I guarantee it's close to 100 grand, if not more, that 18 grand ends up costing you.
That is insane.
But they're assisting you to get that home.
But you know what? And they won't tell you that.
No.
That's my gripe. That is Mark's gripe. That's why we're talking about this today, is to give you the facts about it. And, enough is enough, man.
And here's the thing. If you didn't have that money, then great. It helped you get the home.
Yeah.
You're happy about it. You understand that this 18 grand they're giving you in the 30 years, if you never refinance and you don't pay it back, you just take the full term of the loan, that is going to end up costing you like 100 grand plus. Now, what we're saying is, what kind of pisses us off is if you have the money and you do not need to borrow it, and yes, your interest rate may be a little bit higher, and there's some things we can do to negotiate, maybe having the seller pay your rate down to get you close to that Cal Haffa rate, money you do not have to pay back, okay? And instead of borrowing that 18K, you do something with that 18K. Go put it in a investment account. Hey, how about that? Just pay $18,000 more towards the principal of the home, and on average, you're making 5% interest on that money year over year. And in 30 years, instead of owing an extra 100 grand, you made an extra 100 grand on the money. You get the benefit of the money, not the down payment assistance company that's state ran. You're already paying the state property tax. It's just another way for the state to make money off of you wanting to be a homeowner.
That is insane.
It's crazy. I know I said a lot.
Insane.
I know it's a lot to swallow, but it's crazy, bro. Like, you gotta really, and that's why it is very crucial as a buyer. If you're listening to us, I'm gonna give you a tip. Victor's gonna give you a tip. My tip to you as the buyer is whoever is selling you free or cheap is the person you do not want to talk to, because that person is probably the least educated at what they're trying to sell you. The only thing they know is it's going to save you money it's going to save you money. They don't know the ramifications of the upfront and long-term, cost to it. They're just selling you they're selling you the lovely idea that you can buy something
with no money
down.
And for me, it's not just that, Mark, but I'm just gonna say it, man.
Go for it.
That agent doesn't have your best interest at all. It's just very, very simple. They're just in it to make a quick sale. In most cases, not all. Right? There's some agents that know the difference in the details and will explain them to you. But if they're just use this down payment assistance is the best thing in the world, $5,000 out of pocket or less, and don't give you anything else, they don't mean well for you. Period.
I agree, man. I agree. You got one thing you guys got to remember as potential home buyers is there's no secret. If we as real estate agents do not close deals, we do not make money.
Yeah.
We sell guidance in real estate. We sell our expertise, we sell our knowledge of the industry, our knowledge of lending products, our knowledge of neighborhoods and communities, and our experience negotiating. That's what we sell. And we need to sell that to as many clients as possible to earn a living, right? So we're salespeople. It's just like, we're not car salespeople, but it correlates. There's people that are in the car sales industry for years, and it's usually those that have the best interest of their client. They're not just trying to sell them the most expensive car because you qualify for it. They're really taking the time to understand your needs, and it's someone that you bought the car. It was everything they say. You stay loyal to the brand. You stay loyal. When it's time for your kids to get a car, you take it to the same guy that you bought. You get what I'm saying? So that's kind of how we operate.
The reputation.
Yeah, reputation. And that's how a lot of agents operate too. There's and I don't want to make it sound like everyone's just a bad agent. For every one bad agent, there's 100 great agents.
100%.
But what it is the bad agents will put such a bad taste in a consumer's mouth, right? That view of the view of what an agent does gets skewed. And what we're saying is just make sure whoever's helping you has your best interest and you feel that they have your best interest. And don't be afraid to question what they're telling you. Don't be afraid to shop around agents and ask them the same questions.
Get second opinion, third opinion.
Get third opinions. Don't be afraid to go on internet forums and ask about these programs. Because I'm sure nowadays with all the technology, there's people talking about everything. I'm sure you can go on Reddit and talk, hey, horror stories of down payment assistance, great stories of down payment assistance, and people will pop up and share their experiences.
Yep.
So, anything else to add?
No, we pretty much covered it all, man.
Nice, man.
I feel good with what we shared.
Yeah, definitely.
We definitely hope that you felt the value or, appreciate the value that we shared with you. But ultimately, that's the message for today is just because it seems like it's a good deal doesn't mean that it's going to be a good deal.
Exactly, Victor. Couldn't say it better myself. And we want to thank you guys again for tuning in, whether you're tuning in on all streaming platforms or YouTube if you want to see our pretty faces every Thursday at 9 a.m. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And with that, we look forward to winning with you.